more extensive Q&A at the end. Steve, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Joanna. Well, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me, everyone, and also thanks for making the time to be here on the second work day of the week for you, I believe. And I know it's the evening, so you're a little gassed out by now. It's about 7 a.m. here, and the sun's not up yet. And it's the first day of the week, so I have a little bit more energy. So forgive me if I might be going too fast, or if my energy level is a little too high. But let me quickly share my screen before I continue. So a little bit more about myself. I've been in the PPC industries for about, you should be seeing my screen in just a minute, yes. So I've been in the industry for about 7 years. I joined the industry by working with Yahoo right at the time when Yahoo was building their second PPC platform, which housed both search and native ad buying options. Now, that's the platform that was developed further to then compete with Google's platform, AdWords, as many of you are familiar with. So yeah, and now I work with clients in Canada and US, consult with them to basically build their PPC strategy and execute on it. A big part of what I do is omni-channel advertising, and that's the mindset or the approach to advertising that each ad platform is actually interconnected, and it's usually not possible to just look at one platform and determine the efficiency or the effectiveness of a marketing campaign just by looking at one platform, for example, Facebook or Google. Very often we find that Facebook might not even bring any leads or any conversions, but you'll notice that organic search is suddenly doing good. And that's largely to do with the work that Facebook is putting in, or the branding effort that Facebook is putting in. Same goes to display or LinkedIn. So yeah, with that, a couple of other notes. Feel free to, the objective of this conversation is to talk strategy. We are not going to be on platform looking at what buttons to click to get to, setting up, say, an audience, or what buttons to click to set up an ad. We're going to be talking about how to approach the PPC strategy. So I believe that this session will be most effective if you guys were to feel free to jump in with questions as we speak about each topic. With one, observations from what you've seen in the industry or in your profession. Second, if you have any questions or if that's a relatable problem to what you're experiencing within your job right now.
Hi, sorry to interrupt, Steve, but I have a question, and I don't want to sound stupid, but what is drive conversions?
Sure. Absolutely. Thanks for asking, Noura. It's super valuable that we get to, really, bring everybody along, and thank you for the question. Yeah. So now conversion in the marketing world talks about the final action that you want a user to take. Now, if you're an e-commerce company, conversion for you means someone who purchases a product off your website. So everything, you have multiple elements of a conversion journey. You have the website visit. You land in there from an ad or organic sources. You browse through the product catalog, click on a product, add to cart, initiate checkout, enter your credit card details or your debit card details, and then confirm purchase. And that confirm purchase would be what is called a conversion. And when we say drive conversion, we are essentially saying, how do we boost that up? How do we make sure that we do the best, get the most out of all of the PPC, which is pay-per-click advertising efforts. Now, in B2B side, conversion looks a little different. Usually, sales cycles take much longer, about 6 months, and or even more actually. I could talk about an example of how there was a product that we demoed a year ago, and only now are we deciding to move ahead with the purchase of the product for the business. And that's usually typical of what B2B sales cycles look like. So conversion in B2B is basically when a brand or a company is able to gather your user information, usually your email ID, so they can contact you and follow up with you through email marketing and non-paid channels, which are less expensive. So I hope that answers your question, Nura.
Yeah, you did. It's clear now. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So what we'll do today is, we'll talk about what the marketing funnel is. Then we'll talk a little bit about omnichannel advertising, then audience strategies. All of this is going to be from my experience. So I will try and give as much examples as possible. And then creative and copy strategies, your images and your ad text. And something else that's key to, boosting conversion is conversion rate optimization, which is technically not a PPC strategy, but it is the final piece in the puzzle between a paid campaign and a conversion. So, usually as PPC specialists or managers, you will find yourselves making a lot of landing page recommendations to your clients or to your own business that you work with. And a little bit about measurements. How do you set up Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager? Again, not the technicalities of it. We can talk a little bit about the value of it. Now, feel free to have your camera on or your video on so that I can see you raise your hand, or affirm if you're following me with any of the points that I'm bringing up. Now, is everyone familiar with what a marketing funnel is? You could raise your hand.
Yeah, I know.
Yep. I see 2 hands. Yep. All right. So it might be of value to kind of, okay, we see 3. Tina's on the chat. Thanks, Tina. So for the benefit of others, we can still jump into a little bit about what the marketing funnel is. Now, this is, as an advertiser or a marketer, you'll find yourself using the funnel for almost every campaign that you launch. And it's absolutely key that we think of every marketing effort through the lens of the funnel. On the top, you have the awareness. In the middle, you have interest, actions. Now, technically, if you read a marketing textbook, you'll see a few more elements in the funnel. But for a PPC site, let's say these are the elements that you would mostly action on through campaigns. So let's talk a little bit about what the awareness stage is. Your audience at the awareness stage is probably really broad. You're trying to go, it's unlikely that the people know what the product is or what your brand is. So if you're trying to reach, you always want to start off with educating your prospecting audience of what your brand value is or what your product value is. So, when it comes to PPC specifically, you'll want to approach this with, campaigns that are geared to branding. Now, Google and Facebook and also LinkedIn would have CPM campaigns available. CPM stands for cost per mille, which means you're paying for every 1,000 impressions that you get. Right? So another reason why the awareness stage is so important is because on average, a user clicks on an ad about 5 to 11 times before they convert. So it's very unlikely that they see one ad to say, buy this product, and the next day they're like, purchase it from you, especially in B2B, when sales cycles are 6 months and when the commitment to buying a product is, tens of thousands of dollars, and probably a specialist team deployed into your company to basically transform your entire operations. For example, a tool like Zoho, where you're kind of migrating your entire HR operations into a platform, and you don't make that decision overnight. Which means you want to start off, broad first. KPIs, key performance indices, is page views impressions. You want to what you're looking for out of a awareness campaign is to see how many people are actually looking at your ad, how many people are clicking into your ad and looking at your landing page. And that kind of gives you an idea of whether the ad is serving its purpose of just getting in front of people. And in terms of messaging, you want to keep it to the unique selling point of your product or your brand. In a red market, in a red ocean market where there are a lot of competitors, you want to make sure that you don't go in there and say, "Hey, we are another shoe company." It's unlikely that you're going to gather a lot of traction. You want to talk about why your shoe company is unique, so that people are like, "Wait, maybe I should give this company something to think of." Give this company some thought. On the interest segment, the audience is, if you're looking at from a platform perspective, you have your custom audiences, which are basically built off Google Analytics, which is then, Google Analytics, and then your interest segments in platform. So, for example, I will probably jump into an example at the end of this explanation. KPI would be engagement and adds to cart. Essentially, what you're looking as a success metric from interest campaign is to see how engaged users are. Now, if anyone's familiar with Google Tag Manager, I would recommend in any PPC, whenever you're running a PPC campaign, either be it for an agency, if that's what you're working for, or in-house, that you work with the web developer, to get GTM implemented. GTM stands for Google Tag Manager. Now, once you get GTM implemented, you should be able to also integrate Google Analytics. And the value of that is you get to see data that ad platforms do not give you. Ad platforms will be able to give you information around how many clicks you got, how many people visited the landing page. But an engagement metric is far more nuanced than that. Now, if you have a e-commerce shoe company, you want to see what kind of users are approaching your web page, and what kind of engagement they have. How are they navigating through it? Now, out of 100 users who come into your landing page, say 50 of them go into the running shoes section. So you want to be able to track that specifically, that people are visiting your running shoe section and not just your homepage. And by doing that, you get to be more efficient in the next step of the process, which is action. And I'll tell you why it's important to really identify your audience as you go through each stage of the funnel. Another metric, another KPI would be adds to cart. That's a great metric. You can also track this through Google Tag Manager or Shopify integrations if it's an e-commerce company. And what that tells you again is, and I can give you an example of this again from one of the clients that I worked with. What that tells you is it gives you intent. Someone who's added a product to a cart, is very interested in that specific product. So what, in the action stage, what product or what kind of ads to target this person with, and what kind of messaging to have. And with Shopify integrations, you should be also able to basically place that same product into their display campaigns later. Messaging, again, in line with what I just said, keep it specific to the audience needs. Okay. So in the action side, now you want to target people who are engagers on the site. Now, remember I was talking about the KPI engagement metric. Now, you want to create custom audiences through Google Tag Manager on your Google Analytics to identify who these engagers are and what kind of engagement they have. And once you're really pinpointed on what kind of engagement they have, so you want to create an audience of all the people who are landing into your running shoes section. You want to create another audience who are landing into all the people who are landing into your training shoes, and then for walking shoes, for example. KPI would be to drive them to a purchase, or in the B2B business to business application, you want to talk about, or rather you want to aim to get form submits, essentially people entering the email ID so that they can go through, so that you can then follow up with other efforts. Messaging, you want to have a very clear call to action. So you want to very clearly say that, buy this product, and using languages around urgency, promos, if there's a promo code or if there's a discount running, this is, put it all in your action section. Another reason why you want to kind of go through this entire process in your PPC approach is because the further down you go in the funnel, the more expensive your ads are. Now, if you're familiar with Google Ads, you should be familiar with TCPA campaigns, target conversions, or maximize conversions campaigns, which basically get the highest conversions out of the audience. Now these things can be expensive, and if you go in with a cold audience, when I say cold audience, an awareness audience, you have a product. For example, let's talk about a HR tool for businesses. You can't go into the industry or into the PPC space with saying, I want to target everybody in the HR industry and kind of go out. There's going to be a lot of wastage in ad spend as ad platforms figure out where the ideal customers are, and you're going to be losing a lot of money through it. So awareness campaigns are typically very cheap. You pay for impressions, and you usually pay for, like, say, 1,000 impressions. Interests are slightly more expensive, but still cheaper than, say, remarketing action-oriented campaigns, because you're paying for clicks. And sometimes with action-oriented campaigns, you're paying for conversion, or you're technically paying for clicks, but Google would or Google or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever platform you use would be driving so much more. Would be charging you so much more to try and scoop out the ideal customer for you. All right. Now, does anybody have any questions?
We're good, I think.
All right. Thank you, Nora. Now, on to the next bit. Give me a moment till I adjust my screen. Yeah. So, can anyone give me two platforms that'll help you find the right intent audience on search?
Instagram.
Instagram for search.
Oh, for search, Google.
Yep. So any tools specifically within Google or third-party tool?
Google Campaigns.
Google Campaigns. That's an option you can do.
Yeah, and then there's the Instagram campaigns and ads there as well.
That's true. You kind of purchase Instagram ads through Facebook.
And Facebook. Yeah, I was about to say Facebook.
Yeah. There are, now when you're looking to set up a search campaign and find the right audience within search, I would say there are two key products or tools out there, not products, that'll help you get the job done. One is your trusted Google keyword research tool. That's within your Google platform. It's fairly simple. There are two ways to approach this. One, you can just input your website URL, and the tool will kind of scout your website for keywords that are relevant to your site, and then you can use that to then expand on the keywords, and then use that to create a campaign itself. Another one is a competitor research tool. Now, there are tools like SpyFu, SPYFU. Drop in the chat. That'll help you observe what your competitor landing pages are using for their keywords. Now, these are super valuable insights, especially when you want to when you're just starting off and you have no idea how to launch where the right audiences are. Another valuable trick or strategy that I personally implemented is observational audiences on search. Is anyone familiar with what observational audiences are?
I don't know, like giving out surveys and stuff so we can target our audience, like audience targeting, or I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's not so much targeting audiences with ads yet. We'll get to that in a bit. But now we're talking about how do we find the right audience to target?
Demographics, like you have to do research, check for the demographics.
Yep. And audience observation is one of the tools that will kind of help you do the research. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Thanks, Nora. So with Google Ads, you have the option to a search ad. You have an option to include observational audience, which means you're putting in a bunch of interest segments in the campaign to get Google's database to identify what kind of users are actually clicking on your ads. So if you're a shoe company, again, if you're an e-commerce shoe company, you have you want to have interest segments in observation segments. Like off the top of my head, I can say sports enthusiasts interest segment, running enthusiast interest segment, casual wear interest enthusiast, fashion footwear. So you can input these audiences not to target them with the ads, but to see how this audience perform. And the term that you use is how do they index on the ad platforms. Now, very often you'll find that you'll have one audience that does better than the other. Like if you're a sports e-commerce shoe company that's selling running shoes, you will find that maybe training shoe interests segments are doing better in your audience or in your website, and you wonder why that's the case. It could be any number of reasons, but what you could do is then you could take the insights from there, and second, you could start your native campaigns, your display campaigns, your social campaigns with interest segments for training shoes. Your ad copies, your images can all align with training shoes. And that kind of boosts the performance of your campaign, because it's already the case that people who are interested in training shoes are interested in your site. So let's go after that group to get the most out of our paid campaigns. And lastly, I want to talk about intent signals. Now, if anyone's familiar with ABM marketing, account-based marketing, you can drop it in the chat. If you're not, I could jump in a little bit. Now, ABM strategy is the buzzword in the B2B space. What that means is now when you're trying to sell a software as a service to a company, it's very unlikely that you can just target a company name, or you target all HR professionals or all operations managers and expect that you'll get a lead, or you'll expect someone to give you a call. That audience is too large, and it's very hard to identify what they want. So there are tools out there called Zoom Info and Clearbit. Now, so that basically scouts the web or scouts the user IP addresses of the ones that are landing into your page, and identifies to you what company they're from and what position they hold. And this is like super valuable information, because if you have a product that has like 3 unique value propositions, that has, like, take for example a HR software again, you want a tool to handle your payroll. You want them to handle your employee benefits and your leave management, right? Now, based off intent signals, you might find that the searches that are happening on the internet are around more people are kind of looking for employee benefits management, for example. And then you know who are the companies that are looking for employee benefits management. And then you can create an audience pool, a custom audience pool, based off the employee management interest group. And then you can have another group based off the people in the industry that are looking for, say, leave management, and then the people looking for payroll. And then you can basically launch different, and this would be an interest if you remember the purchase funnel, this would be your interest segment. And you create these 3 different interest segments and go after them with very specific messaging and value proposition that speaks to that need of the customer. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of. Oh wait, am I going backwards with this? No, I'm not. I'm going to give you an example of observational audience for one of the clients that we work with. Now, they're a used car company. Now, if you're familiar with Car Switch in Dubai, I believe, that's the closest example I could find. This company buys cars from individual users, so independent owners, and then sells it to dealers. So that you can't buy cars on this platform, but you can sell them. Now, we found if you were to talk about an audience for a Facebook campaign, what audience would you say you would pick for a company that is interested in buying used cars? I can open up to the group. You can send in your responses through chat.
The older generation, I don't know, our parents.
Older generation parents. Okay, that's a good observation. Did you say that?
Yeah, our parents, because I like middle-aged people.
Absolutely, I think you've been spot on. Can you think about that is one of the audiences that we identified, and you'll see that in just a minute. Any other audiences that you would target, interest segments? So I had Saad as well mention middle age.
But we can use like Facebook ads and campaigns, so we can so it can spread out throughout. And the Facebook ads go on other social medias, like Twitter, for example.
Yeah. And what audiences would you
and Twitter's it's younger generation, like at my age, I think.
Okay, sounds good. Anybody else? Any thoughts on what audience segments or interest segments you'd use on, say, Facebook or Twitter or wherever? Okay, so now what we found is we launched the campaign with the interest segment of used car buyers, used car sellers. It makes sense. This company is into buying used cars of consumers, and therefore we want to target people who are looking to sell their used cars or or showing interest in used car dealerships. Would you agree? Now, what we did find was the people who are most interested in the used car company were people who are actually interested in new cars, and that seemed pretty paradoxical to us. We were like, why? And this is only through Google interest audience observations. And what they told us was basically, it seems like everybody who wants to buy a new car is likely selling their old car. Sorry, everyone who's selling their old car is likely to buying a new car. And which made sense on why new car enthusiasts were the ones that performed the best when it came to selling cars. Another thing that we noticed was what you see here is the income percentages. We had the top 10% of income, using it the most. And this was another peculiar thing we found. And what that told us was, people in the lower income categories would rather sell their car, say, through organic means. Like they would actually deal with the customer in person, or sell it on Craigslist so that they can get a higher price. It's very unlikely that you get as high a price when you sell it through a platform like this, because the value proposition of a platform to buy used cars, and like for Car Switch, is it's easy. It's not that you get the highest price. You're always going to get a highest price of people who are going to buy it off you directly, because they're not charging for margins. So it makes sense why the highest income level performed the best, because they were probably not looking for the $250 deal that they were getting. They were more interested in just get this out of my hands as quickly as possible. And that really helped us kind of build further audiences and really narrow our messaging. Okay, so for remarketing audiences, now we spoke about prospecting audiences. Here's where Google Tag Manager and analytics come into play. We have the capacity to target users at different stages of engagement in the page. Now, through Google Tag Manager, you can one, find out scroll depth. So that's one of the metrics that we use for one of my clients, that we're trying to push out an annual report to prospecting customers. And their question was, how do we know who's interested in this report? Many people click into the report, but 3 seconds later, they might click out. So they're unlikely to be the interested segment. So we use scroll depth as an interest segment. As the trigger. Which means when we scroll 75% on the page, Google Tag Manager fires a trigger, which creates an event on Google Analytics, GA4, which is the newer analytics property. And out of that, you can create an audience segment that says scroll depth users or interested users. And that's a much smaller audience. And we know that this audience is a lot more interested in the report. So when we follow up with this audience with another ad campaign, which is remarketing and to basically get their email ID, they're far more likely to convert. Of course, you can use Facebook and LinkedIn Pixel as well. I would recommend using it through Google Tag Manager. It's easier to manage, and it's also lighter on the website. So your web loading speed is quicker. All right. Another example for remarketing, again, remarketing audience segments. Again, from the same user is, now the process of selling their car was a 4-step process. You land on the homepage, you begin an evaluation on the homepage, and then you'll go into your account page. You'll be asked to create your account, and then you choose a time, and then you can click the confirm inspection button, where a person comes to you, inspects the car, and gives you a quote for it. Now, through your Google Ads, we could only target homepage visitors. You could only retarget homepage visitors. Everybody who visited the homepage gets to see the more specific ad, which is action-oriented. But we found that wasn't working really well, because a lot of people who visited the homepage, we found out that weren't interested in the product. Actually, they just left after 3 seconds or less. So then we used Google Tag Manager to identify the action, which was a button click to create an account. So now we know that someone who's created an account with the company is far more likely to convert or book an inspection. So we were able to bring cost per click, cost per acquisitions down significantly. It's a smaller audience, but it was a cheaper and a higher conversion rate. Okay, I know we are coming up on time so that we can, we could make time for Q&A. So, I'll go a little quicker with the creative and copy strategies. So align ad messaging to the stages of funnel. It's the theme of conversion-oriented PPC strategy is to, have entire campaigns built out based on each funnel stage. So an awareness campaign would have its own audience, it would have its own KPI, it would have its own ad copies, videos, whatever. Interest would have its own copies, videos, audiences, KPIs, same thing in action. So for awareness, what kind of text would you want to use? You'd want to use text that highlight your unique value proposition, things that differentiate your product from the market or your brand from the market. Focus on emotion that the product brings. This is a huge element of PPC. We did a study in when I was working at Yahoo, and we found out that for a certain vertical, fear was one of the highest contributors to getting people to take action. Now, of course, we didn't lean into that because I don't believe that was a very ethical. It's an ethical approach to advertising. But it was a very interesting result we found out. Likewise, different emotions can evoke a response. And you want to identify what it is that your product is speaking to, and what emotion do you want the consumer to have, and kind of build your text around it. If you're promoting a vacation home or a vacation cruise, you want to talk about, relaxation, happiness, get away from stress. You want to use that kind of messaging because that's what people are looking for, as opposed to, hey, cruise. So for images and videos, you want to use, new segments or as seen in. Social proofing, if anyone's familiar with the term what social proofing is, it is the idea that people are far more likely to convert or buy a product when they know that people are talking about it, when others can attest to it. And the best thing that will help you do this is if your brand has endorsements from, say, other magazines, tech magazines. We recently worked with a company that was endorsed by TechCrunch, and they heavily leaned into the TechCrunch article to say that TechCrunch sponsored us or covered us, and that really breaks down a lot of fears that a consumer might have in engaging with your brand or purchasing your product. So you want to have that front and center when you're creating a brand for yourself. News segments are another great example for this, and one of the best practices is use images with faces of people in it. We've seen it work significantly better than using just images of, say, just a phone or just a cruise ship or just a computer screen if it's a B2B SaaS product. For interest, you want to have product-specific talking points. I was talking about a HR platform that handles employee payroll and benefits. You want to talk about you want to create separate ads for each of these interest groups, and you want to talk about the benefits of each of them. Also use comparative data. At the interest stage, that the user is showing interest to your product, specifically yours or that industry. So you want to use comparative data. You want to talk about how your product is better than the competitors. So 50% more efficient than, or talk about how it's possibly cheaper than your competitors. Again, images and videos, you want to show people using the product. And lastly, for action, you want to use, in your text, you want to have a clear call to action. If it's a B2B lead generation product, you want to talk about, let's get, book now or attend now. For a e-commerce company, you want to talk about buy now. I do see a question here by campaign landing pages. Noor, do you mind elaborating that a little bit?
Yeah, so basically by using like campaigns, ad campaigns, we can make the user go back to the pages that they left already. I don't know. I just thought about that. Might be wrong.
You want to talk about the pages that they just left? Like, oh, I think
Yeah.
you're talking about, good point. You're talking about abandoned carts or
Yeah,
people who
yeah, that's
added their cart and left, right?
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
That's another great point. That's a good call out, Anurag. So you want to talk about where the customers left in their conversion journey as well, and that's important. Now, you might have people who added something to their cart and then bounced, and then for some reason abandoned the purchase. Now, through Google Tag Manager and analytics, you can identify these users, and then later through specific remarketing campaigns, target them and talk about, hey, would you like to complete your purchase or get it now before the offer ends? Bring a sense of urgency as well, and it's a great point you bring up.
Also, by using discounts and coupons, you can like entice them to come back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think promos, discount coupons, they're great strategies at this stage of the creative copy. Action, have a clear call to action button on the image itself, so that even if a user is not reading the ad text on social campaigns, they can see an image and it clearly says buy now or alongside offer ends soon or discount coupon 50% off buy now before sale ends. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about conversion rate optimization now and talk about why this is valuable. Now, I told you about how this is the final piece between a user clicking on an ad and converting the landing page. Now, very often we find that a lot of people click into an ad, but they do not convert. And you could optimize the ads how many ever times you want or however way we want, but we just may not see results. And as PPC specialists, it does give us a unique insight into why users may not be converting, especially when we recognize that the audience is fairly engaged through either a keyword or the ad copy on social is doing really well. So it's getting interest into the page, but once they come to the page, they bounce. So you have tools like Google Optimize. It's not a development tool, so it's easy to pick up. It allows you to test different landing page variations. You could have a call to action button that is in the top right corner of your screen, and you're like, maybe it's out of sight and people don't see it enough. And you can kind of pull that and put it in the middle of the screen and see how that works. And that's exactly the example that we see here. This is an industry example of a company that is trying to get people to schedule a demo. But where your eye falls, there's a man holding an iPad, 2 iPads, and that's what you see. And it's hard to understand what the objective of this one screenshot is. And here's the test. Here's what they did. They created another variant with sign up for a free demo right in the center of the screen. And that had like a 52% higher conversion rate. And it's not too hard to figure out why that's the case, isn't it? You know what the website is asking you to do. It's obvious. And that's another thing that we found out as well. We worked with clients that have had a lot of information on a page. And many times with conversion rate optimization or landing pages, the richness of information or the volume of information is not what drives conversion. You could describe a product in an entire essay, and that might be the poorest performing landing page out there. Why? Because users are not going to be spending like 5 to 10 minutes reading through an entire web page. They have the attention span of like 7 seconds. You want to kind of get them to act as quickly as possible. So yeah, and we found that, when we ran the test, we kept removing elements from a web page to a point where we just had one copy, one value proposition, and the form fill, nothing else. And we found that that was the highest performing landing page. It had no images. It had no talking points about the list of value propositions. People are like, sure, like, give me the demo. And they submitted their email ID. So that is a huge win. So as you think about PPC, this is another thing that you'll often find yourself, doing when you work with your work with your clients. Lastly, measurements. We kind of went over this. The whole point about the whole reason you want to be measuring your ad campaigns is because, when you talk about omni-channel advertising, each ad channel learns and contributes to each other. So your Facebook might not be driving conversions, or your Instagram might not be driving conversions, but they might be coming into your organic channel. And by setting up your Google Analytics and your Google Tag Manager, your events, you'll be able to look at your ad audience attribution models. Essentially, what that means is it gives you a visual picture about what are the different touch points a user took before converting on an ad. And you'll very often find that someone must have clicked on an ad on Facebook and later come and converted onto your website through an organic source. So just because they haven't converted on clicking the ad, it doesn't mean that the ad is not valuable. And that's the whole reason you set up your your analytics for omni-channel measurements. Another way to identify what value each platform brings is isolation tests. One of the things that we've done is, when we don't see conversions coming out of a certain platform, and you want to see how valuable that platform is, we will leave everything else the same, and we will just turn off that one platform, for example, Facebook. And then we'll kind of look at, on the other end, on the website through Google Analytics, how many conversions are coming through. And sometimes we'll find a slight drop in conversions. And what that essentially means, and you'll do this for a 2-week period or a 1-month period of no Facebook ads. And what that essentially means is Facebook's actually driving value for your brand. It's a key branding element, and it's a key social proofing element that you want to continue. Okay, another part about this is this is the whole cycle. With launching campaigns and measuring them, you get to take learnings through tests or observing cost per acquisitions, and you can pause campaigns that don't work well after your test, and when you're fairly certain that they don't work, and you can then recommend that you use that budget for existing campaigns or creating new campaigns. And that's one of the key parts of what PPC strategist does, is to find the most optimal way to use your ad spending budget. You launch your campaigns, you measure against your KPIs that we spoke about right in the beginning, your cost per acquisitions, your landing page views, and then see and make decisions based on that. That's the third step. Where do we put more budget? Do we pull back budget in some certain campaigns? Do we change the audience based on how they're performing, or do we completely cut off a certain platform? So that's a little bit of an overview of how do you approach PPC strategy to optimize towards conversion. So I'll open it up for questions now, or hand it over to Joanna. I have my contact details up here, my email. Feel free to, I realize that we haven't dived into the platform-specific elements. That wasn't the objective. But if you have a situation where you're working on a platform trying to figure out conversions for a client, I'm happy to connect over email and kind of also walk you through specifically on how to set that up, or how to specifically apply this to your use case.
Great. So let's open it up for questions. If anyone has questions, feel free to unmute, and we can go through them. If you feel shy, you can drop it in the chat. I'm happy to answer your questions.
Okay, so I have a question here. My competitors, Steve Enterprises. I have the keywords that are successful for my competitors.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a great lecture, honestly. And I'm probably gonna email you because I'm starting my own business. So I don't know how to go about the campaigns and all of that. So this is gonna be very interesting.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad to hear that this was helpful. I look forward to connecting.
Okay.
So I have a question from Tina here. And Tina, if I'm not wrong, can you tell me if what you're asking me here is, okay, so you're asking me how aggressive you need to be with your competitor keyword market strategy? Tina? Okay, so your competitor is bidding, say, $20 for a campaign, for a keyword. Now, here's what. Now, I know that there was another session specifically about this question, but I can go over this a little bit. Now, how Google's algorithm works, or any paid paid media, search SEM's algorithm works is it's the second highest bidder that wins, it's the highest bidder slash quality score that wins, but you actually pay the second highest amount. So it drives by design this this protects advertisers from winning the bid by just having an unreasonably high bid. So you don't necessarily have to go 40 or double them to win it. As long as you have good alignment in your funnel. Again, if you're in the awareness stage, you want to align your keyword, your ad copy, and your landing page to what the user is looking for. And if that happens, Google's going to assume or put together the fact that your ad is far more relevant than someone who's possibly paying more than you for that keyword, and you might actually win. So even if you don't pay more than $20 for that competitive bid, I would say you might still win. You don't necessarily have to go up, but it does always be safe. You could always go a little higher. 40 might be a little too much. You could do 21, 20, 22. You just need to be a little higher than competitors. And often you might not always know what your competitors are bidding. Spyful will give you how much they're paying, so that might give you an idea of what value is a certain keyword of. I think Google's keyword research tool will also give you information around how much a keyword is worth. So you can have that as a bid or keep it slightly higher. I hope that answered your question. Yeah.
Hi, Steve. I've got a question. So
Go ahead.
I've tried operating a couple of e-commerce websites that I had, businesses, but I've noticed that all my campaigns get not really any conversions, but then they get a lot of impressions. And could you give me some tips why that could be?
Sure. Now, I'll ask you a couple of questions. Are you running these on search or are you running these on social media?
On search. I've tried Google search. Google Ads and social media as well. I have tried both.
So if I'm right, you're getting a lot of impressions, but you're not getting a lot of clicks. Or are you also seeing clicks?
I'm getting clicks, but no conversions, like sales.
Gotcha.
If we say a sale is a conversion, then I haven't gotten any sales, but then I'm getting a lot of impressions.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks for the question. That's a really good one, and a question that we frequently have to deal with. Now, in the beginning, I started off with talking about how, a user on average needs to have 6 to 11 touch points online before they convert. And very often, and it seems like in your case, there is high intent for your product because there's a lot of impressions and a lot of clicks. Okay. And very often we might find the users aren't always willing to, on first click, pay big money for a product. They might want to wait. And that's where social media and remarketing campaigns come into play. And I would recommend, one is to launch remarketing campaigns on social media or Google Display itself, to identify these people who clicked into your website, create remarketing audiences out of people who have who say initiated checkouts, and then target them with specific ad copies that say, hey, complete your checkout, or if you have promos running, or you can include a sense of urgency in it, and buy now before stocks last. And you can have messaging like that on other channels, which then bring these users who have seen your product and left back into your homepage or your e-commerce page to then complete the purchase. That's one approach. The second approach is the CRO approach I was talking about. There's possibly something in the landing page itself that probably confuses the user. They're like, wait, I have no idea what's happening here. Where do I click? So CRO might be another avenue to consider. And that would be my 2 recommendations. I hope that was helpful.
Do you think it's also how good a product is?
Absolutely.
Now that I remember, I ran them on Facebook ads a lot.
Okay.
So yeah, I was getting a lot of impressions, but very few conversions.
Okay. So again, impressions and clicks were high, but
I'll give you an example of what business I had. It was a bamboo toothbrush business.
Yes.
So I marketed on Instagram, Facebook, but all I was getting was just clicks and interest, but no conversions.
Yeah. And could you talk a little bit about what kind of audiences you went after?
I did a lot of testing. So I think that's another thing when it comes to PPC. You have to do a lot of testing. Is that right? To see.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I did a lot of testing, and I looked at the competitors. So, and people who are into, and because bamboo toothbrush is like a minimalist thing, or it's environment friendly, I looked at people who are interested in that. Looked at magazines that preach about being eco-friendly or recycling, and so on.
Yeah, that's I think you've done some good groundwork there. I would also encourage you to use a audience observation on Google search, and that helps you identify where your highest indexing audiences are. And you might find that you might want to layer in an income level as well. Now,
so how do you check the income level? Is that mentioned anywhere?
Now, if you're targeting US, you should be able to just flat out say, I want only the top 10% of income. One of the other strategies that I do, especially in Canada, where we cannot target by household household income, is I approach only big cities. I only target cities that I know are some of the richest cities in Canada, like North Vancouver, Toronto, Quebec.
Right. Yeah. On Facebook ads, that's where I did it. They show the interests and age group and all of that, but I don't recall any. Yeah, and I didn't use any tools. Maybe I should incorporate some tools. So are these tools free, the ones that you mentioned, SpyFu and?
Most of them aren't. Most of the tools would require you to pay some amount.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, there is one recommendation for you about finding the right audience, and I will also add get some analytics in place. And I think, have you tried remarketing? Now it sounds like you've gone in with a cold audience, and which is essentially, we've gone with an awareness or interest segment group, and then expected them to convert. But there is another whole step that we need, which is targeting interested users. And what does interested users for you really mean? Is it people who spent, say, 10 seconds on your page, or people who have viewed a product, or people who have scrolled to a certain depth on your landing page? And creating another audience of that might be something for you to consider as well. Okay, and another question from Tina. If I'm working on a finance business advisory company, does LinkedIn Marketing Solutions help generate leads? Any other tools to generate leads B2B? Sorry, Steve. Yep, no worries. Thanks for the question. Great question. LinkedIn is probably the biggest platform to drive leads in the B2B sector. It is also one of the most expensive platforms. Now, it seems like if you're working for a finance business advisor company, so it sounds like you want to target a certain industry. LinkedIn is a perfect platform for that. It'll give you you have the option to look at industry. You have the option of looking at job titles within an industry as well. You have also the option to look at seniority. I think even company names. So if you have a list of company names of finance and business advisory companies, you can actually put them all together and create an audience on LinkedIn, and then create and target and layer that in with other elements like job seniority. So look at the top 5 finance companies, or the 20 finance companies, or 100 finance companies, and then layer in people who are managers and above. And then you can go after them, and that'll be one great way of generating leads. LinkedIn is expensive, so depending upon what your budget is, you also have the option of going to options like Clearbit. Clearbit is something that we are evaluating right now. It allows you to essentially get LinkedIn level targeting on Facebook. It's a lot cheaper, and one of the value props that Facebook brings over LinkedIn is recurring users. People are on what we find is people are on Facebook more often than that you're on LinkedIn. So if you were to place an ad on LinkedIn, you have people viewing that ad far less frequently than on Facebook. And again, going back to what we started off with, a user needs to have 5 to 11 touch points. So one strategy is to have multiple platforms. So I would also encourage you to, if your audience size on LinkedIn isn't big, also have other platforms where you're able to capture audiences, or at least remarket them on Facebook and other social media, or use Clearbit to kind of get that same LinkedIn level targeting and advertise to a larger audience. Facebook's also cheaper in terms of cost per clicks versus LinkedIn. You'll be sometimes paying up to $10 a click. Facebook, you could pay up to $2. You could pay more, but far less expensive when it comes to cost per clicks. But I will give you one caveat that it probably makes sense if you're using an external third-party platform like Clearbit or something, that you might want to be spending, say, $10,000 to begin with to see the value of the platform, because you also need volume to come through for those platforms to work really well. I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Great, guys. Any last questions? So we are running out of time. So final questions, if there are any.
Steve, do you think Facebook ads are dying?
We haven't. I'm still a huge, evangelist for Facebook ads. Now, I will say that Facebook is getting more competitive, as is any platform. 7 years ago, you would have seen some really high conversion rate on Facebook. Now you don't see the conversion rate because there are so many more advertisers on there. So now it's a game of how accurate you can be with your audience segmentation, your creative copy, your messaging, your video creation, your image, your content creation. It's a matter of how strategic and how nuanced you are with all of these elements to then lead to a conversion. So the ad platform itself is not dying; it's a lot more competitive. So it needs advertisers and PPC specialists to be on their feet and staying on top of their audiences, working with designers to put together very compelling designs to stand out from the crowd, and of course landing pages as well. So I would say it's become more competitive. I think that's what you need to be more aware of.
All right, so I think we will wrap it up. We've already exceeded the time limit. And Steve, thank you so much for being here, for taking us through these concepts and for making it very simple to understand. We really appreciate it, and we really look forward to having you come back and do maybe other webinars and other sessions with us. So big thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Joanna, for having me on here. Thanks everyone for joining. It was a pleasure to speak to you all. Again, you have my email ID up here. Look forward to connecting soon.
Amazing. Thank you so much to each one of you as well for being a part of the session. I hope it's been helpful. And I really look forward to seeing you on future webinars and cohorts. Thank you so much for being a part of the Qureos community.
Thank you so much.